obviously no business on December because I took it off. No business in January. No business in February. And I remember telling you, shit. Hey everyone, welcome to our third episode of Mindset and Wealth. I'm your host, Jose Cereceres, and my beautiful wife as my co-host, Denice.
Denice Cereceres.
And today we want to talk about why real estate. Why did we decided to do real estate? So we want to dive a little bit into the reason why we ended up doing real estate, and she's doing mortgages.
So what was really interesting is that when we purchased our first home, we had a couple that also helped us. The wife was the lender and the husband was the realtor. That dynamic was amazing. I remember it was a very stressful moment because buying your first house, you don't even know what to expect. And the teamwork that they had, I mean, they really, truly got us a good deal. So I think that's when initially we started seeing what it meant to have a husband and wife team. And we purchased our first home in 2009.
Correct.
Now, fun fact about because I'm all about facts and stories. So when we purchased our first house, I think we closed in January or February of 2009.
Yeah, February.
And I kid you not, guys, a month later, guess what? We had another small correction in the market. It wasn't that small. I think our home was worth about $40,000 less.
Not a month ago after we bought it, but probably about in a year, it dropped another 40K.
I don't know if it was a year, babe. I think it was like a month or two. Like it was almost immediate.
Okay. Yes.
But we're going to keep it at that, okay? Because that's the story I've been telling myself. But it did go down. So it went down because there was another...
Right.
Yeah, we had another dip. And a lot of people are like, well, you took a loss. No, we didn't take a loss because we didn't sell the house. We actually got a really good deal because we purchased when nobody else wanted to purchase. And remember, the house was really cheap when we bought it. It was $166,000, huh?
That's right.
So $166,000, that's how much we bought it for. We actually got a check from the government a year later for buying the house. That's, again, because we bought in a market that nobody wanted to buy into. Everyone was very skeptical about the housing economy. So we got a really good deal. And out of that deal is what kind of started this whole thing, because we didn't time the market. We took advantage of time in the market, remember? Mm-hmm. So what happened later? Remember when we refinanced? So do you want to go into that?
Yeah. So the 5 years after, we bought the house, it did die up a little bit. And then little by little, the houses went up on price, and it started to recover. And I remember 5 years later, Veronica called us like, hey, the interest rates are super good because we got the rate about 5.99 or 5%, 5.5.
Yeah.
She's like, the rates are pretty good. They're on the 3%. And they're getting lower. So I think it's a good time for you guys to refinance. And I say, hell yeah, let's do this. So we started the refinance process. We ended up refinancing to drop to 15-year term. Yes. We removed the PMI. We dropped it to 2.99. And I remember Veronica said, look, you guys can do this. You guys can drop to a 15-year term. Since you're removing the PMI and you're also removing the interest, you can go to 30 years if you want to, and your payment is going to be super low. I remember she said, or if we do the 15-year term, because I was talking to her, what about 15 years? So if you do 15 years, your payment is going to go up $50. But it's going to go $50 because most of your money is going to go to principal. So a lot of the money is going to go to the principal so you can pay down quicker. And I was, I'm already used to paying this dollar amount. So $50 more is not going to break the bank. And I definitely want to save on the long run. So I think the mentality was like, hey, you don't want to look at the right now situation. I was looking at the future situation, saving the money that I was going to save. First of all, we cut 10 years of paying the mortgage, and 10 years of interest rates it was a lot of money that we saved. So yeah, we ended up doing that. So that was probably one of the best decisions that I ever made.
Yeah. And because of that house, think about this, guys. Okay. Not only did we buy in a market that was lower in price, but we also were accelerating the payoff. So what we ended up doing is getting that home equity line of credit, remember, with Arizona Financial. So we got the home equity line of credit, and we started doing the flipping. We started buying the houses and doing all the remodeling, and then we sold it. Do you remember the first house we bought? The one where we actually even took the kids to help us empty because it was absolutely trashed. Do you remember that day?
Yes,
I
I
still
do.
remember that day.
I do remember. That was so
So
fun.
so at the beginning we purchased the house, and we learned a lot from that first sale, because if I recall correctly, I think you took a little bit of a loss. And you don't like to lose, right? Jose doesn't like to lose. But
I don't think
he
nobody likes to
quickly
lose.
but he quickly
That's just
shifted.
a personality of mine.
Well, no, nobody likes to lose. But you quickly shifted and you said, you know what? I have learned a lot about this house. So that first house that you bought, we went and we did all the cleanup. Remember, we decluttered everything. I think it was an elderly lady that lived in that house, and it was a family affair to us. We all went and we all pitched in. Our son was really little. We emptied that house, and that was the first sale. And yeah, you took a little bit of a loss, but I think that's what even intrigued you to get more into real estate, because you wanted to keep more in your pocket.
No, absolutely. So it's definitely doing the flips and the fix is definitely a good business. And I think the second house would definitely make some good money finally, and start building from there. But I don't think we only lost like $500 on the first one altogether. We
Oh,
put it all
I,
together,
I
so it
could have
wasn't
sworn it was 1,000, but that's okay.
no, so it wasn't too bad. And I know exactly why we lost a little bit of money. We overspent, and you usually do that on your first project. You overspent a little bit more than you should. On the second one was much better. The third one, and so on and so forth. So yeah, no, definitely. And I was always intrigued about real estate. I was always intrigued about doing the fixes and the flips. Me and Angel, we used to talk all the time about that, and kind of dream, right? About like, hey, let's do this. We're going to buy these houses. We're going to do this. So it's pretty cool. Um, so yeah, and now we're here and now doing real estate.
But I think we skipped a very, very important part.
Mm-hmm.
We would have never been able to invest in flipping if we had not taken the leap of action and purchased our first home. Our first home has given us so much wealth, because we leveraged the equity that home built. So that is something that I'm very passionate about, and that's why I always suggest or encourage our clients to purchase a home, because every market is going to have a pro and a con. I don't think there's a perfect market, but I will tell you, of all the time I've been in real estate, I think this is one of my absolute favorite markets, because our buyers are literally getting almost everything they want. And that's what they sleep on, because some people are like, no, we're going to wait for the housing to crash. I've been waiting for that. It hasn't crashed. And I'm sure we've had multiple recessions and it has not hit the real estate market. Our Arizona market is so expanding. Not expanding. It's so abundant because there's so many companies coming. I mean, I can go on our Arizona market, but I take it back to, it's time in the market, guys. It's not timing the market. When you have the ability to purchase your home is just not removing you from being a renter. Your first home is opening up so many opportunities. I recently had a guy that said, you know what? I'm ready to start my own business, and the only way I can fund this dream is by taking some cash out of my house. And lucky for him, he had been sitting on that house for a while. So he took a really good chunk of money. Now he's going to be able to license his business and charge more, because he was doing side businesses and working for a company. His equity has now funded for him to be able to open up his own company and now charge more because he has the proper licensing to do so.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think what you mentioned about, try to time the market. I do have a lot of clients who call me. It's like, oh, I want to wait until the crash, or I want to wait. But then when we have the high rates, oh, I want to wait for the rates to be better. And then we have better rates. Oh, I want to wait for this to happen. And then that happens. And oh, I want to wait for that. And it's
There's
fine.
always an excuse.
We wait. And obviously we hear from whenever that person feels comfortable. You can't push someone to buy a house if they don't have the mindset to
Yeah.
do so. But I think sometimes we do concentrate a lot on try to market, or I'm sorry, try to time the market, and it's so difficult for you to really do that. I think is if you have a need to have a home, buying a house now is the best time, and obviously you're going to make sure that it makes sense for you financially. If it doesn't make sense for you financially, even if it's the best time to buy, you're not going to buy.
Yeah.
So it has to make sense for you financially first and foremost. But I had a client who said to me one time, potential client said like, well, I'm going to have a mortgage for 30 years. It makes no sense. It's like, okay, so that means that you're going to be renting for 30 years, 35. How many years are going to be renting? Because if you say you're never going to buy a house. No, I'm never going to buy a house. So you're going to be a renter for 40 years. You're going to have a lease agreement. Well, I won't have a lease agreement for 40 years. No, you're right. But every year you're going to sign a new lease.
Yeah.
And the next year another lease. And then the next year another lease. So you're going to be renting for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Where a mortgage, yes, you're right, it's 30 years. But just like we did, we cut it down to 15 years. Or then you still have to pay rent anyways. So at least you're paying something that builds your equity, and then you can use the equity down the line if you need it to. So there's definitely a lot of power of owning your own property.
Yeah. So fast forward, right? You start doing the flipping. You start doing the flipping, and then you quickly realize, hey, I want my own license. I want to maybe save a little bit of money and maybe market the house however you want to. You guys had an absolutely amazing realtor, but I think you were ready for the challenge, right? So that's when we decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and become the lender. I'm going to try the real estate and see if it works. So in 2017, I quit my job at the credit union, and a lot of people are like, hey, why are you doing that? The housing market is about to crash and you're leaving a very secure job. I was an assistant manager for that credit union. And I'm like, I don't want any negativity. Like, I want to change. So then I went and did the lending. And I remember in 2019, you got your license. And guys, it was hard. I mean, do you want to tell them your story of what your routine looked like when you were doing part-time real estate and full-time corporate America?
Yeah, so obviously we already had decided to do this, right? To do the real estate, and that I was going to go into real estate, but I couldn't just quit. I had a responsibility. I have 2 kids and a wife, so I couldn't just like, okay, bye. That was just financially was not possible. So I told Denise, look, I think it's gonna be a tough year. It's gonna be a difficult year. I had to go to school, and after school, I still have my responsibility.
Yeah.
So I had to do this late in the afternoons and on the weekends. So sure enough, that first year it was, come home, drive home from work, drop the company car, pick up my other car, and drive to go show houses, and then do the same thing the next day. On the weekends, most likely that's the days that I was going to show more houses. So that year was super busy. Luckily enough, that year was so good. I was able to do quite a lot of transactions that year to where we were sitting like, you know what? I think for me, it got to the point where my primary job, I was not as happy anymore as how I was productive with them.
Yeah.
I'm always the type of guy who did 110%. And I felt like I was at 90% already. And some of the people kind of noticed that too, like, hey, you've been a little more angry more than normal. You're very irritable more than normal. What's going on? And that's when I say, you know what? And that was probably the last 3 to 4 months. I was like, you know what? I think it's time, because, if it continues like this, I can't be able to do both of them. I can't give my time to real estate like I needed to grow it more. And I cannot just leave these people the way it is or work at 50%. It's not fair. That company gave me so much, and the people had a lot of people who depend on me. So I couldn't do that. So that's when I decided, you know what? I think it's time
to part ways.
Which it was the plan. My original plan was to do this for 2 years, but it was so good the first year that we were able to do it on the first year and cut loose from that,
And guys, Jose's not telling you guys, but he was managing 17 stores. 17 stores, and was closing probably one or more houses a month. I would not see this guy. Well, probably more. I don't know. I wasn't counting. I didn't see Jose. Like, Jose got up early in the morning, left to work, literally came back, swapped cars, and he was out there. Real estate is not for the weak. Like, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of commitment. He was out there every day of the week for 12 months. Well, probably a little bit more than 12 months. But his main job wasn't easy, and I still think you did very, very well. But you are a type of person that you have to give it 110%. And if you cannot commit to 110%, you're not going to do it. So you 2019 wraps up and then 2020 hits, and what do we do then?
uh, Obviously by that time I was like, okay, it's time for me to quit and just concentrate on real estate. I was business was doing very good, and I was like, you know what, this is time. So obviously I decided to quit. We took December off. I thought, like, okay, I'm golden, I should be good, right? So we took December off, and then January, I think I remember we went to Rocky Point, right? And then everybody started COVID. COVID was just starting. And then we went to Rocky Point, and I started hearing all these things about toilet paper. Remember that?
Yeah, there's a lot
Toilet
of
paper, toilet paper here, toilet paper there, and they were putting on social media. Back then I didn't believe yet about COVID or anything like that, and or what there was really going on as big as people were saying, because it was just barely starting. And I posted a picture of in Rocky Point. There was the grocery store was full of toilet paper. In Phoenix there was not, I guess. I put the picture. I got a lot of people who reach out to me that I have not spoken with in so many years, and they wanted me to bring toilet pepper. I was like, I'm not gonna bring toilet pepper. But anyways, COVID happened, and obviously no business on December because I took it off. No business in January. No business in February, and I remember telling you, shit.
Yeah.
I think I may have to go back to AutoZone. I might have to go back or find someplace else to work. I work at Walmart for a little bit of time. I was like, I'm gonna reach out to my previous manager at Walmart and see if I can come back. It got a little crazy.
Yeah.
Luckily enough, we had some savings, and I remember saying to you, like, hey, I'm gonna hit it hard. I'm gonna just push it hard for the next 3 months. And we have enough money to sustain ourselves until June. If by then we don't see anything, then, unfortunately, this did not work out. So I did that. I really concentrated. And this is one of the things that I tell people all the time. I have a lot of agents who, talk to me, and they do one particular lead generation practice, and they do that for 2 to 3 weeks. And then they give up, or they say, oh, it's not good enough. I was just talking to an agent, and wanted to give it a try to open houses. And I said, okay, you want to try to open houses? That means that you have to do open houses every Saturday, every Sunday, next week, and then the week after that. She's like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. It's like, if you want to just give it a try to open houses, to give it a try, and you're only going to give it a try one weekend and hope and pray that that's going to work, forget about it.
It's not going to work.
And it doesn't matter what type of lead generation you do. You can try door knocking, and I know a guy who does door knocking that is fantastic, and I could never do door knocking, but he does a very good job at that. It doesn't matter what type of lead generation you do. The point to the matter is to be very strategic and very consistent.
Yes.
Consistent will be the winner every single time. So I remember I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Back then I was doing the Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
And I was posting early in the morning, midday, and the afternoon consistently every single day, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you name it, every single day, little by little. We started getting some clients. Finally, April came. In April, we had a couple of deals in April. May, boom, just blew up on May. And then after that, I ended up doing double the transactions. I closed, 24 that year. Technically, from April to December, I closed twice as many transactions as I closed the previous year, working all year long. So the moral of the story for me was consistency, right? Yeah. Consistency and really pushing through and finding that lead generation that you're really going to like and really going to stick to it. And it doesn't matter what it is. Like I said, it could be, I have a lot of people who like to do Instagram, and that's great, or TikTok now. TikTok is the famous thing not to do these days. So doing TikTok really works, but you have to be doing it all the time and consistently, and not switch back and forth. I think that for agents, I tell agents all the time, look, try one thing, really stick to it for a long time. And if you want to try something different, don't let this one go. Try once this one is working, and then implement something different. But don't implement new things every month. Switch what you were doing, because whatever progress you made up to that point, it's gonna be gone. So that was my second year in real estate. It was pretty interesting to say the least. But I think the consistency was really key to where I'm at today.
Honestly, for me, it was new because you had never really been in that state. You've always been like the primary breadwinner. You've always had, you know, a job, and you did have a job, but you weren't getting all those leads, right? And I saw you question yourself, but at the same time, you took that slow season to really implement the systems, to educate yourself, and to be very consistent in your marketing. And I think that was a blessing in disguise, because that was the time where you were able to build the foundation so that now the business that you have grown is, I don't want to say bulletproof, but it pretty much is, because you took that slow time instead of throwing the pity party and be like, oh crap, let me go back to corporate America. You took advantage of that slow time. It was difficult for me to watch you be, you know, worried about how you were going to bring in some leads, but I'm so happy you stuck it through and still went through it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I remember one of my mentors saying to me, look, when things are bleak or not doing so great, a lot of people, what they do is they throw their hands up in the air and they give up, right?
Yeah.
If and as an example, you're supposed to call 20 people a day, as using that as an example. And then things are not doing too well,
Yeah.
and people, it's not working, it's just kind of tough. And what they do is they cut.
Yeah.
So now they do only 15 calls, so they only
Yeah.
do 10 calls, or they only do 5 calls. And then they question themselves after that. It's like, oh, things are not working, but they're working less, or they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing every single day. And what this mentor told me, hey, Jose, if things are not doing so well, you need to double down on what you're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing. You double down on your production. You will double down on what you're supposed to be working on. So if you're supposed to do 20 calls, using that again as an example, then you do 40.
Yeah.
And then, because if you do less and it's not as well, or the market is not as good, then doing less is definitely not going to give you the result that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So you want to double down onto that and work more and work more. And you're right. I think anytime we had a situation where the market is slowed down, and as you know, there's always a season in real estate and
Yeah.
the year. There's some months that are more busy than others. So when the time is kind of slow on that, I always take the time to kind of implement something new in my system, try to perfect it if I can, try to do something a little bit better. And of course, double down onto what I'm supposed to be doing, my work, right? I think by doing that and putting that in practice really helped me take my business to the next level.
Yeah. And honestly, guys, like from there, we've been able to just, hit the ground running. And we've been, again, very blessed, very fortunate to be able to help a lot of families. We both had a lot of seasons in our careers where we just wanted to throw our hands up and say, screw it. This is hard, because real estate is hard. I think entrepreneurship is hard because you don't have a manager there motivating you. You don't get to clock out the minute that you want to, per se, because, sometimes you have to work around your client's clock. But I'm so glad we didn't quit, because now we're able to maybe, what's the word? Hire help, right? To help us delegate some of our tasks so that we're able to free our time more. But that's essentially our story in real estate, how it started. And maybe you guys think it's easy, and maybe we make it look a little easier, but we've had a lot of very difficult moments, and we made it through. And now I think we're sitting in a very, very good spot. So that's why we wanted to share our story with you guys, because I think right now, especially, there's a lot of people in the real estate industry that are struggling, and we struggle too, right? But we've been there. We had to build our business from the ground up. And actually, remember, I kept listening to this quick reel that said that the reason you're feeling burnt out is because you forgot about the person that started the business from the start. So when you're feeling like you're not motivated, look at that person that started the entrepreneurship. That person had the drive. That person gave it their absolute all. If we can take it back to that person that started the business, you don't feel burnt out. There's no possibility of losing. And I think that has helped me a lot too, because I remember the Denice that started real estate, and there's no way I can tell her now, like, I give up. I won't give up.
Correct. And I think that was crucial for me too as well, because when the market has been a little tough, so to speak, or things are not happening the way I would love to, then I always go back to basics. That's how I call it. Go back to basics.
Yes.
Just like, okay, so what really brought me to here now today?
Yeah.
Let me go back to that, revamp that, rework on that, and get back to basics, and then move forward.
Yeah.
So guys, this is our third episode. Thank you very much for sticking to us until the very end. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys been listening to us until now and get a lot of insight into our life and insight into why we do what we do. Hopefully you guys will stay with us on the next episode. Remember, it's every other Friday at 5:00.
So again, thank you. Like Jose said, thank you for watching until the very end. Also, make sure to follow us on your favorite social media platform. And we can't wait to see you on our next episode of Mindset and Wealth, where we help one another build an empire.